I'm Jane Goldman, and I'm investigating the paranormal. Tonight, I'm finding out if we can communicate with the other side. Can the dead talk?
The dead man.
People on Earth resonate with certain people on the other side, and they come in close to communicate with us.
What alternative explanations could there be when I actually recognize the voices? The only conclusion I can come to is that it is them.
Oh my God, that's so clear. Now, at the beginning of the 21st century, we can wander the world and still stay in touch through mobile phones and emails. But has the communication explosion affected those who want to talk to the dead? My first investigation was into something called electronic voice phenomena, or EVP. Those who use it believe that they can record the voices of the dead. I travelled to East London to meet a woman who claims to have used EVP to record the voices of hundreds of dead people. 12 years ago, Judith Chisholm was a journalist working for the Sunday Times. But when her 36-year-old son died suddenly, she was desperate to keep in contact with him and began attending séances.
We went once a week, regularly, for 6 months, and I actually wasn't convinced what was going on at all. But one evening I took my small tape recorder and I put it on the table, and I'm not even sure really why I did it. I think it was just an attempt to find out anything, where the taps were coming from, the table was moving and this sort of thing, and I just wanted to find something out. I didn't know what. And when I played this recording back, there was a voice on it, and it said my name, Judith. Quite quietly, but definitely there.
Judith had hoped to hear from her dead son, Paul, but although the first strange voice she'd recorded was not his, she decided to record every séance she went to, in case Paul did get in touch.
And then I heard Paul's voice, and I know Paul's voice. I mean, he's my son, after all, I know his voice. And he said, is she there? Very excitedly. Is she there? Like he could see from something that's happening wherever they are that I'd tuned in.
It's your mother, Paul Chisholm.
Hearing what she felt certain was her dead son speaking changed Judith's life completely, and exploring EVP became the focus of her life. Over the years, she's recorded hundreds of voices, and although her son does not communicate regularly, Jack Hallam, a former work colleague, is apparently constantly in touch.
Jack Hallam speaks all the time. He comes through on every recording I make, he's there. He says his name. There can be no doubt whatsoever that it's him, because it's his voice as I remember his voice. Because not only the voice level or timbre comes through, but also the whole personality comes through in one's voice. One time I was going somewhere and I said to him, "Will you come with me?" And he said, "I'll be there." And then there was a pause. This is quite a clear recording. "I'll be there. Hallam, the dead man."
I listened hard to the sounds Judith could so clearly recognise as speech, and I found it difficult at first to make out clear words. It was like listening to a radio voice through very bad interference. But as Judith repeated what she thought was being said, the sounds I heard did seem to get sharper and more like words.
"Jack, I'll go there. Hallam, the dead man." Now that sounds a bit macabre, doesn't it? But you can understand why it's being said like that. It's emphasis. It's like saying, it's me, don't forget, don't make any mistake, it's me. They're not dead in the accepted sense of the word, are they? Everything about them is the same as it was. Everything about Jack is still there. They desperately want to make contact. That's the sense I get. I didn't even know anything about this phenomenon. If somebody had told me 10 years ago that dead people could speak and you could record their voices, I would have thought they were insane. And certainly I didn't make the initial contact. No. They did.
I can certainly see the comforting aspects, but have there ever been times when it's been disturbing or frightening, the kind of messages?
It has been frightening. I knew somebody, and he seemed to be perfectly healthy, and I did a recording, and a voice said, "It's Bernard's time," and a week later he died. And that alarmed me, because I thought, God, what if they one day come through and say, "It's Victor's time, my son," or "It's your time"?
I've just
I
gone
wouldn't
cold.
want to hear that. so I don't want to hear certain things. Do you know what I mean? I'd rather not know.
Being told by someone who's already dead that your time is up is a really unsettling prospect, but I didn't let it distract me. EVP seemed like an ideal technique for me to try out myself. Since the early séance recordings, Judith had discovered that EVP works anywhere because, she believes, the dead are all around us. All we had to do was find a quiet space, press the record button, and ask for them to leave a message for us and wait.
This is the button you press to record, and I know that Spirit is speaking because there's a tiny little pinprick light here which is red when it's turned on, and when they're speaking it flickers all the time.
But can you hear the voices at the time?
No, I can't.
Okay.
No, but I know that they're speaking because the light is flickering. You say something very short and then let it record, and then let's see what we get, shall we?
Okay, yeah, no, let's.
Right, a minute, just let me find the right place.
Hello, if you could speak to us today, we'd be very grateful. Thank you.
Now that Judith had pressed the record button, we just had to wait. Everything seemed to go quiet. Even the London traffic seemed to have stopped. The only sound I could hear was my heart beating. The room was totally silent, but the red light on the tape recorder was flickering. Something was being recorded. Judith played it back.
Okay, thank you. That would be very short. I mean, it feels like you're recording for ages, but it'll be just a second or two.
Hello, speak to us today. We'd be very grateful. Thank you.
That really sounds like a voice.
Well, there is a voice there.
There is a voice there, isn't there?
There is a voice there. Of course there is.
I mean, I suppose
So-
the argument might be that it's able to pick up radio waves and things. Have you experimented with ways of trying to exclude those?
I've been told by some boffin that digital doesn't work like that. It can't get radio waves. So, you know, that probably counts as that one. I mean, I hope it does anyway. But, of course, there's tons of experiments that could be done, but it just needs somebody, a scientist, to come along and say, right, we're going to really examine this now. And I wish that would happen.
I decided to respond to Judith's request for more investigation and to plan my own experiment. The sounds Judith had recorded were real enough, but could we just assume they were the voices of the dead? Could we be certain they were voices at all? If my experiment was going to prove anything, I needed to resolve this.
Few people realise how prone the human ear is to hearing articulate words in otherwise murmurings or stray sounds. You're getting the hearing of pattern in randomness. With Judith, there is a very high level expectancy effect. People have an expectancy of wanting to hear somebody and also a belief that they're going to get a message coming through. And from a psychological perspective, that may be happening.
What kind of evidence would you be looking for, again, to prove that the communications really were from the other side?
Well, in terms of the EVP phenomena, if any messages were to come through, whether it's through tape recorder or telephone or any sort of machine, and those messages were specifically just for one person, and that person was the only one that knew the information or knew the detail of the message, nobody else knew, I would find that evidence quite compelling.
I decided to tackle Kieran's challenge and try to find a case where the evidence showed that information had come through that only the dead would know. I also started to plan my experiment to discover if new technology had made it possible for anyone to communicate with the dead. I decided to include EVP as one of the methods I'd use. I'd been impressed with its simplicity. Even though the results were still open to interpretation, I was confident that I could get something on tape. After the break, my investigation continues when there's a dead man on the phone.